Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit randyrhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
At one point, he was co-opted by Vladimir Putin. And that means that he bought into and embraced the dictatorial ideology that was done by a spy master of the KGB. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, there'd be treason trials at this point. But I'd like to bring one point up. Why? Because long ago, there was a guy named Yuri Bezmenov, a KGB officer, and he wrote, "This is who the KGB targeted for recruitment. Egocentric people who lack moral principles, who are either too greedy or who suffer from exaggerated self-importance. These are the people KGB wants and finds easiest to recruit."
That's Malcolm Nance, by the way, former Arabic-speaking naval intelligence, counterterrorism, and intelligence officer specializing in the Middle East. He is a combat veteran, taught Sears School, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. He's a historian. He's an author, 35 years in the field and combat intelligence activity, including both covert and clandestine anti- and counterterrorism support to national intelligence agencies. And I'm thrilled to virtually meet you, Malcolm Nance. Thank you. Thank you. You're awesome, I got to say.
Hello, Randy. Good to meet another vet.
Well, yeah. Oh, thank you. You are like requested by my audience. It's crazy. It's like you're like Stairway to Heaven or play Freebird. It's like, get Malcolm Nance. I'm like, okay. So anyway, Malcolm, this is crazy. This is just so off the hook. I know you've been following this story since Donald Trump said at a press conference, the Russians, you should hack and you should release these documents, and you felt that was, a bizarre statement from any American, let alone a presidential candidate. And then it just spiraled out of control until we find out, the dossier that was written by Chris Steele. You don't happen to know Chris Steele from Fusion, do you? Yeah,
No, I don't know Chris Steele. I had read his memo actually as early October when David Korn called me to consult about his article.
Yeah, he's gone missing, and a guy in your area of expertise is to go missing, to have to leave your own house. That scares the bejesus out of me. And so
he's in a country hotel in the Cotswolds right now in England, and it's some little cheery hotel with pink floral couches. So that's his way of disappearing.
I hope he's not in a bathrobe. Somebody's going to snap a photo and put that all over Twitter.
Well, can I just say one thing, Randy?
Yes, please.
Actually, in fact, my investigations and analysis, and that's what my book, Plot to Hack America, is. It's an analysis. Started when I was writing another book that's coming out later this year called Hacking ISIS. And that was, we started that book in February of last year. And we noticed while going through ISIS hacking operations that two of them were extremely sophisticated. And it was a hack of French television 5 TV5 in France, and the German Bundestag, the German parliament. And ISIS photos and flags were left all over their websites. But in fact, they were Russian intelligence pretending to be ISIS.
Oh, my God.
And so when I heard the DNC hack had occurred in late March, we realized in April when CrowdStrike, the cybersecurity company, identified the entities that had done it, these were the exact same two entities that had hacked TV5 and the German parliament. And so from there, that's when I started very carefully following the Russian hack. Although my background's in Middle East intelligence, when I came in the Cold War, everyone was trained in Soviet, Russian, KGB counterintelligence. The Russians were everywhere. I worked in the Middle East, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Sudan, wherever, Iraq, of course, the Russians and the KGB were there. So it was very easy to extrapolate from that experience that this was a Russian intelligence operation to attack the United States.
And obviously, the NSA had warned the White House that it was Russia that was behind the hacks, and that they not only had hacked into the DNC but GOP too, and also voter information. And they, this Trump campaign denied it all along. Why would they? I mean, why was he talking so nice about, Putin to begin with? Whatever happened to Carter Page? Whatever happened to Paul Manafort? And now Michael Flynn? Coincidence?
Well, for those who actually see me on MSNBC, they'll know that my favorite counterintelligence phrase, I call it Nance's Law, is coincidence takes a lot of planning. And that is a very, very old intelligence dictum. There is no coincidences here. What we're seeing is a lifelong yearning by Donald Trump, starting back in the 80s, where he approached the Soviets, he approached the Russians, of wanting to do business in Russia and seeing it as this untapped pool of money that he could exploit. When the Soviet Union fell, he saw billions upon hundreds of billions of dollars of Russian assets, many sold and liquidated by Vladimir Putin himself, come to New York City and buy up real estate. Mm-hmm. In fact, the FSB actually ran agents, a cell of agents in New York City as high-level realtors. A lot of the people Trump was dealing with were ex-FSB, KGB officers.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's the same organization.
FSB and KGB. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, we understand that. But there was some story about pensions and funneling money that way. What do you know about that?
Well, I don't know much about the pensions. You're talking about Russian pensions or American pensions?
I'm talking about, the tenants of Donald Trump in these Trump buildings. They somehow received money from Russia. They just also happen to live in Trump Towers, in Miami and Trump Towers.
Yeah, there's no really solid reporting on that. That's pretty much in the rumor intelligence category. But the things that are solid are way more frightening than pensions coming to tenants.
Okay, so tell me what this audience needs to know. I mean, I watched Sean Spicer today dump this all at the feet of the White House counsel, who is somehow MIA. But this predates Flynn's phone call. So this has been going on for the whole campaign.
Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, and this goes back to the fundamental question about this campaign. I've been hammering this since July 25th, which is the day that I ran into MSNBC and said, hey, the nation has been attacked through a large-scale cybersecurity operation against the fundamental tenets of American democracy, which is our electoral process.
Yeah.
But it goes back to when Trump, he wanted money, and he seemed to have been very interested in Russia. And then when he went to the Miss Universe pageant in 2013, it was like Katie bar the door. They threw oligarchs, multi-billionaires. One family has a palace 3 times the size of Versailles. These are not people who have $1 billion. These are families that own $100, $200 billion. Trump saw them. They sponsored him at Miss Universe, and he became obsessed with Vladimir Putin's fealty, to being, wanting to be friends with Vladimir Putin, and they saw an asset. And that clip that you played at the beginning, where I talk about Yuri Bezmenov, seeing that they recruit the KGB, and Vladimir Putin, by the way, former KGB officer, director of the KGB, the FSB, just as it transitioned. This man is a spy master. He sees human intelligence targets, and he exploits them through weaknesses. Donald Trump was clearly a colorful American who had influence, who had money, and they must have seen him as an easy mark to flip. And then when he decided to run for president, somehow, and this is the least reported thing in the media, when did Donald Trump adopt the Kremlin's ideology? Between 2013 and 2015. Who spoke to him? What did he read? Why did he seem to believe the Kremlin's worldview of the end of NATO, the end of the European Union, the end of liberal democracy, and the rise of authoritarianism and white supremacy in the United States became a more preferable ideology than liberal democratic policies in the United States? It's utterly fascinating. But the only thing I can say is, as an former intelligence officer, is this man was co-opted by Russian intelligence and was co-opted by the shiny object of money, and they played him just like every other asset that they've ever turned. Except Donald Trump was an unwitting asset until July 27th, when he said, Russia, if you're listening, please hack Hillary Clinton's, release Hillary Clinton's emails. That means he became aware Russia was working in his interest, and he became an active, witting asset of Russian intelligence.
Do you think this is why he sidled up to Carter Page and Flynn and Manafort?
Yeah. Well, Carter Page was a young guy, used to work for the oil companies. Who, if you read anything about him, no one in Russia knew who this man was. But he came onto the Trump team and said, essentially said that he was a big player in Russian oil.
Yeah, he was the foreign policy advisor, the early foreign.
Right. And he was sent, supposedly according to the Steele memos, he was sent to Russia in July of 2016 with a message to Igor Sechin, the Russian Rosneft CEO of one of the largest oil companies in Russia, that if sanctions will be lifted against Russia if President Trump wins. Right. Now, I saw that report in September, or actually late August of 2016, and my first thought was that report comes from one of our allied intelligence agencies, and that is an intercept of a telephone call, because it had high levels of detail, as if they were listening to one side of a phone conversation. Mm-hmm. NSA, our national security agency, cannot do that without a warrant. But the Germans can, the French can, the Ukrainians can, and these people were going over there and making promises. Then came in Paul Manafort, who was, as dirty as they come. I mean, this is a guy who had made millions creating anti-NATO protests in Crimea a year before the Russians seized Crimea. So he literally helped weaken the Ukraine's defenses against invasion. I mean, anywhere else, that would be treason. That's up against the wall stuff. And there are written documents of this man receiving unidentified large quantities of money.
Yeah, the New York Times reported it as $12.7 million. He denies that he ever received it. But here's a little detail. And you being, somebody that's been involved in government, for a really long time should know this is true. That Paul Manafort never registered as a foreign lobbyist, and yet he's lobbying a foreign nation and advising them to, to stand down and let Russian take. And then Yanukovych, flees and goes to Russia. I mean, it's funny, but sometimes, you get somebody because of their tax returns. Well, in this case, Manafort is easily gotten if somebody was interested because he failed to register as a foreign lobbyist.
Absolutely.
So I don't understand why that's never been, Well, as
you know, in October of 2016, the Justice Department, the FBI, finally got the FISA court, right? The Federal Intelligence Surveillance Act court, which is the secret court that issues warrants for people who may be involved in espionage.
Right.
Okay? And that means that allows the United States government to use all of the assets of the government and the assets from our foreign intelligence allies, which is most likely where this started. You can't, if we're working overseas and we get information that an American citizen has done a crime, and they put 10 binders of material on the table, we can't touch those binders until that court order is in our hands, and then it becomes evidence.
And check this out. I mean, this is so sickening to me. Sally Yates, tried to tell the White House what was on those tapes. She tried to explain to them that the Flynn is blackmailable now. We have these transcripts, and Sally Yates was fired, and she was the only one with the authority in the government to sign off on a FISA warrant.
Right. Absolutely.
I think that's why they went after her.
I've said this a number of times on MSNBC. I just said it again this morning.
Yeah.
It's not the cover up. It's not the cover up is the crime.
Right.
That's from the old Nixon White House.
Right.
The cover up is the crime. The things that they do, if they are actively working against it, if they find out that they are stopping the FBI's counterintelligence division from carrying out this investigation, or they are hobbling this investigation in any way, slow walking it, or lying, then we have a right now, I believe we have a national security crisis of unprecedented magnitude. Anything that they've accused Hillary Clinton of is a grandmother who couldn't use email is nowhere near the two events that have occurred. Potentially, people, and I'm sorry, I will go there, potentially Russian agents or spies in the White House, or a president who has cleaved to Russian ideology out of fealty to a foreign leader, as opposed, not to mention, possibly exposing an entire dining room full of people to top secret code word information.
I saw. Oh my God! What did you think when you saw that? And there's another photo too. I mean, this is just details.
Well,
but there's a photo of some lock bag. I don't even know what that is. That can't be the football, can it?
The football.
That is the football.
Yeah.
And the key, is in it in the presence of people without security clearances.
Oh well, you're thinking of a classified carry bag. That's a lock bag you're thinking of.
Yeah.
And that's different. That's not the football.
Okay.
The football is always in the hands of a commissioned officer who is always at the elbow, who is always near the president of the United States. He, the young Air Force officer, was taking pictures of people with it. Just wrong. Guy needs to be brought back to Air Force headquarters. You were Air Force, you know that.
Yes.
Air Force OSI needs to be having a long talk with him because we don't know. Was he influenced by the people in the room? Did someone offer him money to identify himself? We don't know. So he needs to come off that duty.
He does. And just for this reason, I can now point him out. I could pick him out in a lineup. I now know who he is. I know his name. And all those people taking photos and at the table where there's papers spread out in the open air patio.
And they're claiming that was not classified information, that had nothing to do with the Japanese, with the North Korean ballistic missile launch. Mm-hmm. We're going to find out because now I understand this afternoon video has emerged of what was going on at that table. And if it turns out that you're actually going, the entire United States, if that video comes out and it turns to be about North Korea, we could be having what we call an inadvertent leak of information to the entire nation. I mean, the entire nation would have to get debriefed and read in and out of the program due to inadvertent exposure to top secret material. This is insane that we're talking.
That's the word.
These people, Randy, these people cannot do government. They don't understand national security. They are operating in a bold and arrogant manner, which is screw everybody else. If I were the central adjudicating authority, the DOD CAF, or CIA CAF, I'd be pulling clearances left and right.
Yeah.
These people should not be allowed near this material. They have already, within 3 weeks, horribly abused it and or may have, we don't know whether someone is leaking this information to the Russians. By the way, last point, the Steele memo. The Russians are hunting down, killing, or arresting everyone who they believe is a source to that memo.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. I see people turning up poisoned and dead, and it's
whoever they kill or whoever they arrest, it means that memo blip is true.
True, yeah, including the salacious parts, which I'll never get out of my permanent Rolodex, and I've seen a lot. But
hello.
Oh my God! But let me just ask you if you believe that this might be true. The Independent in the UK is reporting that that former NSA analyst and a counterintelligence officer and some of our spy agencies have begun withholding intelligence from the Oval Office with fear that, quote, the Kremlin has ears inside the White House Situation Room. Do you think that there's any truth to something like that?
Well, that comes from John Schindler. He's a disgraced NSA person.
Wow, really? Okay.
If you Google him, you will see the breadth and measure of that disgrace. He did some public exposure, which was salacious in its own way, on government computers. So he fancies himself a cybersecurity expert, and he did work at NSA for a while. He was a Naval Reserve officer. However, he's got a history of exaggeration.
Okay.
I have worked at NSA myself. I've worked in various other branches of the government that I'm not allowed to discuss. But the people who work in these jobs at the NSA, at CIA, at DIA, they are true patriots.
Yeah.
And they come day in, day out, and do a thankless job in the dark with very little accolades at all, and living up to the honor and statement of Nathan Hale, who said that he has but one life to lose for his country. And these people feel the same way. There is information that must be shared with the president. The president is only given information that is in bullet point. If I would be suspicious if he asked for the keys to the kingdom, for example, which is, I want to know about the most top secret encrypted, material that's carried out at NSA or the real names of foreign agents.
Oh, my God.
No president asked for that. I mean, Barack Obama certainly wouldn't. He would say, "What are you doing?" And they would say, "We're doing stuff." And he'd say, "Is it fun stuff?" And he'd say, "Yeah, it's really good stuff." And he'll say, "What's the result of this stuff?" By the way, this is how we all talk. And they'll say, "This stuff will hinder, the Iranian nuclear weapons program by 7 years." And he goes, "If I sign this piece of paper, will that stuff happen?" And they go, "Yes." And he goes, "Signed."
Right.
And he doesn't want to know.
Right, right. And the last president that wanted to know outed Valerie Plame. Remember that?
Absolutely, yeah. Valerie Plame Wilson, who is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And that's when you get into trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, if even presidents don't really have an ultimate need to know. There's nice to know, but nice to know is not a classification authorization.
Yeah.
If he wants to watch a live feed on a mission that he signed off on, great. That is his responsibility to give him situational awareness as the commander-in-chief. If he asks for all the real name of every agent inside of ISIS, and you might want to say, "Mr. President, are you sure you want to know that?"
Yeah.
Because this is the sort of thing that you could have inadvertent exposure. It could kill not only our assets, but it could kill our allies. And worse, it could jeopardize the lives of our American citizens and our special operations and intelligence officers in the field who really don't want to be involved in this. But Donald Trump seems to want to drag them in left and right.
Do you think the Russians have something on Donald Trump? Do you think he's being blackmailed?
Absolutely.
You do?
Absolutely.
Do you,
and the reason that I say that is, one, I've spent almost the last year watching this, and people always ask me, they say, "Malcolm, you're a Middle East guy. What do you know about Russia?" Russian was the first language I ever learned. Got 3 kids adopted from Moscow, and
what?
And yeah, I got my own little KGB cell.
Oh my God! Wow.
That's what I tell my buddies at the Spy Museum. I said I have my own KGB cell, but they don't speak Russian anymore. But
yeah, I'm Ukrainian. I don't speak Russian either. So.
Well, it's one of the first languages I've learned. But when I came into military intelligence, the naval intelligence, the first thing they teach you in counterintelligence is the Russians are everywhere. And back in those days, I worked Libya, Syria, Yemen, Sudan, wherever. Russia was always there. Russian spies were always there. Russians were always trying to flip people as assets. And in one instance where I was at NSA, it worked. They paid one guy $35,000, and he sold some of the topmost secrets in the United States. So we always had to be on guard.
Oh,
so
I remember that. I remember that. Yeah, I thought he came very cheaply. I thought is what that was. But okay, so this is exactly what the dossier says too. I mean, it's not. This is not just us yelling into the void. This is what the dossier says too. It said that they were cultivating. They were looking for Michael Flynn. They even tried with Jill Stein, Lyndon LaRouche. All these people that they were looking to flip people, and apparently they succeeded with Trump. So we sort of have a Manchurian candidate, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is Trevor Noah in the Daily Show during the election.
Yeah.
Put it, I think, a little more succinctly. He said Donald Trump is like the Manchurian candidate who is running on the platform of the Manchurian candidate. Right? I'm the Manchurian candidate. The Russians have changed me. I'm a spy, and I will assassinate the president. Please elect me.
That's true. That's true.
Utterly amazing. I mean, it is. You are at the point of pulling your hair out. And the thing is, until this particular story, as the terrorism analyst at MSNBC, I was the most calm guy in the room.
Yeah.
But now there are truths and facts which are unavoidable. And everyone here, when you see these statements Donald Trump makes about Russia, there's no one that I know in the intelligence community who doesn't look at each other, shake their head, and go, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, right? WTF.
Yeah.
Why? And it brings to mind, why would you say that? What is your basis of operation? What is your personal motivation? And why would you suddenly decide to sell out 70 years of American defense policy? And then when you look at these past connections, you will start making bridges. But until the evidence comes out, we don't know. It is just suspicious.
Well,
and it is now moving from suspicious to sinister.
Yeah, well, obviously. I mean, didn't John Brennan, the former director of the CIA, didn't he get a recording of a conversation last year from one of the Baltic states' intelligence agencies saying that money from the Kremlin had gone to the Trump campaign? I know that was reported in the BBC. And, you know, if that's true and it's being reported in by the BBC, which is, a solid news outfit, where is our counterintelligence task force to investigate this?
Well, the National Counterintelligence Center and the people of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division, who work for the Director of National Intelligence, by the way.
Yeah.
And this is why I think Director Comey has been so coy. He really has two faces about these issues. I think he thinks the regular gum-chewing political things with Hillary Clinton he saw as political. But when it came to questions of counterintelligence, he didn't want to go anywhere near that discussion because he knows how important it is. If there is a spy hunt going on, and we know there is, FISA warrants have been issued.
Right.
Then what you are going to find is this information has been introduced to the United States through our joint analytical centers. We may have had an allied power come up to us and say, hey, I've got a recording. And I've been in the room for these things where they push something across the table, and we say, sorry, walking out of the room until we come back with a FISA warrant. And then, of course, I'm excluded from it because I'm just a collections operator. And then the lawyers and the liaison officers up at the high level of NSA or CIA take over these operations, and until they get a warrant, then the FBI walks into the room with that warrant and takes possession of information which may be detrimental to the United States. We have a process for handling that. But the Estonians don't, right? I mean, if they get a tape and they think they've got a cell phone, they'll just walk it over to the BBC and go, hey, bros, listen to this. This is very interesting.
Yeah,
and then that comes out as media. It may be in our hands.
Yeah.
We just are not going to tell you.
So you think that there's a process and that Comey is abiding by that process? Yeah, because
I think he is. Comey is a relatively decent guy. I think he, like I said, when the politics put pressure on him, he bent to politics, but now he will never bend on a counterintelligence mission. He knows that will be not only the end of his career, it could sully the FBI forever if he were to play politics with this. He's going to let the spy hunters hunt.
Yes, I am of that mind, I have to say. And I get a lot of flack for that. I get a lot of heat for saying that. But I always say, I keep on saying, I want Comey to be my boyfriend. And by that I mean, all you have to do to be my boyfriend is do the right thing when no one's looking. Do you know? And
yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so this is the hope I hold out, that he has been doing this ever since, the CIA said, we have some recordings and we need to look into this. And by the way, what is going on with the FBI in New York? And where is Rudy Giuliani? And why is he talking to these agents? And, right? I mean, there was a lot of corruption.
Sure.
Yeah.
And this is where we need an independent investigation with subpoena power.
Yeah.
If you're going to spend years
what did you think
investigating... I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're getting right up to the news time. But I just wanted to ask you, what did you think of the House Intelligence Committee today? Nunes saying that, there's nothing here. We don't need to look at this.
That's insane, and he's going to eat every one of those words.
Yeah.
And if it turns out that someone is dirty or has invisible strings, all right, he's going to go down with them. This is a matter that is nonpartisan. This is the security of the United States. This requires patriots, not party members.
I love you, Malcolm Nance. My audience was right. You are my free bird.
Okay, Airman, calm down.
Thank you. Yes, that's all I ever was. It's just an airman.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you so much. We will talk again soon, I'm sure, because now I have your phone number.
All right, take care.
Thank you. Malcolm Nance, everybody, the author of a million books, but the latest one is about hacking. And then there'll be another one about hacking after this one about hacking. It's incredible. What was the name of that book? You had it up on the screen the whole time, didn't you? What was it called?
I have to look it up.
The Plot to Hack America.
Randy Rhodes, Air Force. The Randy Rhodes Show is live on randyrhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or progressivevoices.com now.
Go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.